My name is Sherry, and life has been pretty chaotic lately. Just 6 months ago, I left what I thought was my forever love story. On top of that, my grandma is battling dementia, and everything around me seems to be falling apart. I was at the library, trying to distract myself by organizing books, but my thoughts kept wandering to Grandma. That's when Jess, my best friend, walked in, looking concerned as she always does when she's about to deliver some tough love. "Sherry, you look awful," Jess said, her hands on her hips. "Thanks, Jess. You sure know how to boost someone's confidence," I responded, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "No, really, Sherry, this isn't okay. You need help. Professional help," she insisted, her tone softening. I knew she was right. The sleepless nights and constant anxiety had taken a toll on me, so I sighed. "Maybe you're right. Know anyone good?" She nodded eagerly. "Dr. Pfizer. He's excellent with things like this. I'll send you his details." I wasn't sure about seeing a stranger, but I knew something had to change. The next day, I found myself in Dr. Pfizer's office. Cozy, with dim lighting and a wall full of degrees. He was probably in his late 40s, with a calming presence that made me feel at ease. "So, Sherry, what brings you in?" he asked, his voice steady. Where do I even begin? I thought, it's everything. I left my fiancé, my grandma's ill, and I just feel stuck, I confessed, my voice trembling. Dr. Pfizer nodded as he took notes. That's a lot. Let's tackle this step by step. Over the weeks, I started opening up in ways I hadn't before. He never judged, just listened, offering a simple or "I see." It felt like I was finally releasing years of pent-up emotions. One day, I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. The sun was setting, and for the first time in a long while, I smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. Later that night, while I was reheating canned soup at my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Pfizer about a follow-up appointment. I stared at the screen for a moment. This man was becoming my lifeline, and a part of me resented how much I depended on him. Weeks turned into months, and by the time 2 years had passed since I first met Dr. Pfizer, I could finally breathe again. I even laughed at a joke Jess made. Then, during one of our conversations, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I picked up anyway. "Hello? Sherry, it's Dr. Pfizer," came the voice on the other end. I was surprised. "Dr. Pfizer, is everything okay?" I asked, concerned. "Yes, everything's fine. I was calling to talk about your progress and perhaps extend an invitation," he said, followed by a nervous laugh. "An invitation?" I repeated, intrigued. "Yes, I thought maybe we could meet for coffee outside of the office. You've made great progress, and I think it would help to see things from a new perspective," he suggested. I hesitated. "Isn't that against the rules?" I finally asked. There was a brief pause. "Well, you're not my patient anymore. I thought it would be nice to catch up in a more casual setting," he explained. "Okay, sure. Coffee sounds good," I said, a strange flutter rising in my stomach. We met at a local cafe the following Saturday. It felt odd to see him outside of the office, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. He seemed so different, normal, even. "You look well, Sherry," he greeted me, offering a warm smile. "Thanks, Dr. Pfizer. I feel better too," I replied, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Please call me Robert. We're not in the office anymore," he said, laughing lightly. "Okay, Robert," I said, feeling a bit awkward. The conversation flowed easily. We talked about everything, his love for hiking, his dream of visiting the Grand Canyon, and my newfound passion for painting as a form of therapy. As we sipped our coffee, Robert leaned in, his eyes serious but kind. "Sherry, I've watched you grow so much. You're incredibly strong, you know that." I blushed, not used to such direct praise. "Thanks, I guess I had a good therapist," I said with a small smile. He chuckled. "Well, I can't take all the credit. You did the hard work." Time flew by as we continued talking, lost in our conversation. It wasn't until the waiter came to clear the table that we realized how much time had passed. "I guess we should get going," I said, feeling a bit disappointed. Robert stood, offering his hand to help me up. "Sherry, I've really enjoyed this more than I expected. Would you be open to doing this again? Maybe dinner next time?" I hesitated, a mixture of excitement and caution bubbling inside me. But when I looked into his sincere eyes, I found myself nodding. "Yeah, dinner sounds great." What started as casual coffee dates soon blossomed into a full-blown romance. Before long, Robert and I were married. He was attentive, caring, and always supportive, especially when it came to Grandma. I thought I had finally found happiness, that my life was heading in a better direction. But after the wedding, things began to shift. Or maybe his true nature started to emerge. It started with small comments about my friends. You don't need them, or they don't really care about you. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just overprotectiveness. But then it escalated. He became possessive, wanting to know where I was at all times. His control seeped into every part of my life. He even insisted that I quit my job because he didn't want me to feel stressed. You don't need to work. I can take care of everything. Trust me, Sherry, he'd say, his tone firm. But it wasn't about the money. It was about control, taking away everything that was mine. And soon, I found myself quitting my job and becoming entirely dependent on him. That had been his plan all along. Then came the isolation. He checked my phone, monitored my texts. Who are you talking to? Why are you laughing? He'd demand, his voice harsh. It's just Jess. You know her. I'd say, feeling trapped. He'd scoff. Jess, she's no good for you. I don't want you talking to her anymore. It felt like I was losing my mind. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted him, my voice shaking but firm. I can't live like this, Robert. You're controlling me. I need my life back. He just laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Your life is with me now, Sherry. If you leave, what about your grandmother? She'll be back on the streets. I found myself trapped in a life I had never imagined for myself. Every time I thought about confronting Robert, the image of my sweet, confused grandmother being kicked out of the care facility froze me in my tracks. His threats kept me bound, under his control. The only moments I could allow myself to cry were at night, in the solitude of my bed, beside the man I had once believed I loved. I couldn't help but wonder how I had ended up here. How did the kind and charming man I married turn into this cruel version of himself? The signs had always been there. His need to dominate, his dismissive attitude toward my friends, his constant pressure for me to quit my job, they had been present from the start. But I had been blinded by a desperate need to feel loved, to feel cared for. Now I was paying the price. I knew I couldn't keep living this way as a mere shadow of the person I once was. But every time I thought about taking action, the thought of his threats to my grandmother paralyzed me. I was stuck in an endless cycle of fear, control, and despair, unsure how to break free. The months dragged on, and I began to fade away. The vibrant, independent woman I had once been was slowly replaced by someone who flinched at every word he spoke, who jumped at every slammed door. The house became a prison, with Robert as the warden, and his rules the chains that kept me locked in place. One evening, sitting in what should have been a cozy living room, the tension was thick enough to cut through. I tried to shrink into myself, to become invisible, but Robert was like a storm, ready to explode. Why don't you ever look at me when I speak? Robert snapped, his voice sharp and accusing. I flinched instinctively, trying to retreat. I'm sorry, I was just lost in thought, I stammered, hoping to calm him down. Always lost in your thoughts. You're here with me, don't forget that. I'm your husband, he growled, his voice rising with each word. I nodded and mumbled more apologies, but nothing I said seemed to make a difference. He was in one of his moods, and nothing could soothe him. You know what? I'm sick of this attitude. You need to learn, he said coldly. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm, his grip digging into my skin. Robert, please, you're hurting me, I cried, my voice breaking. Without a word, he dragged me toward the small storage room, the place I feared most. It was dark, windowless, a suffocating box that filled me with dread. Maybe the dark will teach you to appreciate what you have, he hissed, shoving me inside. I stumbled and hit the cold floor as he slammed the door behind me, plunging me into darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as panic set in. I had always been afraid of the dark, a fear I had shared with him when I thought he cared. Robert, please, let me out. You know I'm scared of the dark, I called out, my voice trembling. His mocking laugh was the last thing I heard before his footsteps faded. Alone in the dark, I curled into the corner, sobbing uncontrollably. Time seemed to stretch on forever, the house creaking and groaning around me, each sound amplifying my fear. But the real monster wasn't in the shadows. It was just outside the door. The man I had married. Eventually, the door creaked open, a sliver of light breaking through the darkness. Have we learned our lesson? Robert's voice oozed sarcasm. I couldn't respond. I just nodded, desperate to escape. He pulled me up, his grip still tight, but slightly gentler. "Good, don't forget who's in charge," he sneered. As I stumbled back into the living room, weak and disoriented, a wave of shame washed over me. How had I become so weak, so controlled? But beneath that shame, something else stirred: anger. Anger at him for treating me this way, and anger at myself for allowing it. That dark room had been my wake-up call. I couldn't live like this. I wouldn't let him crush the last bit of me. Then, something unexpected happened. A glimmer of hope. I found out I was pregnant. As I stared at the positive tests, emotions flooded me: fear, uncertainty, but also a fierce, protective love. Maybe this would soften Robert. Maybe it would bring back the man I had fallen in love with. With trembling hands, I approached him that evening. "Robert, I have something to tell you. We're going to have a baby." His reaction was immediate and terrifying. His face twisted into an angry scowl. "A baby? No, that's not happening." I recoiled, the harshness of his words stinging. "But it's our child," I pleaded. "Maybe this will change things, make everything better." His voice turned cold as he spat out his response. "No, Sherry, it changes nothing. You're getting rid of it." A surge of defiance filled me. "No, I won't do that. This child is part of me." He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my flesh. "You don't understand, do you? You're mine. Everything about you is mine. Your body, your future, your fears." I struggled, but he was too strong. "Robert, please, let me go." He didn't relent. Instead, he dragged me to the small locked room at the back of the house, a place I had always avoided. It was dark, damp, crawling with spiders, my deepest fear. With one forceful shove, he threw me inside. The door slammed shut, and the sound of the lock clicking echoed in my ears like a death sentence. My heart raced, panic swelling as I heard the skittering of spiders in the dark. "Let's see how long your maternal instincts last now," he taunted from the other side. I screamed, pounding on the door, but it was no use. The hours dragged on in that terrifying dark room. My thoughts raced, my fear for myself and my unborn child consuming me. How could I bring a child into this nightmare? Finally, the door creaked open. Robert stood there, a smug grin on his face. "Well, have you thought it over? Will you get rid of the problem now?" Tears streamed down my face, but through them, I whispered, "No." His smirk faltered, but he left me there, alone, with only the spiders for company. Exhausted and terrified, I fainted. When I woke up, I found myself in a sterile hospital room, the white walls offering little comfort. My mind raced as the memories flooded back, the darkness, the spiders, Robert's cruelty. But amidst the fear, something else grew within me, a fierce, protective love for the tiny life inside me. I knew I had to act, not just for me, but for my child. Alone in the room, I pulled out a phone I had hidden away and called my cousin Mark, who worked for the FBI. His voice was a lifeline as I whispered my situation, my words filled with fear and hope. "Mark, it's Sherry. I need your help. It's about Robert." "I can't." My voice trembled, and the full weight of the situation threatened to crush me. "Sherry, slow down. Tell me everything." Mark's voice remained calm and steady. I recounted all that had happened, each word slightly lightening the heavy burden. Mark kept his tone professional, but I could sense the fury simmering beneath. "Sherry, listen carefully. I will help you. We're going to get you out of there, but you need to hold on just a little longer. Can you do that?" he asked. I nodded into the phone, making a silent bow to myself and my child. "I can, Mark. I have to." "Good. I'll make some calls and we'll move quickly. Just stay calm and don't do anything that might raise his suspicions," he instructed. I agreed. The plan was taking shape, fragile but real. The remainder of my hospital stay was a blur of doctors and hushed phone calls, each minute dragging as I waited to be released. When the time finally came for me to return home, a heavy sense of dread settled in. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary now seemed monstrous, its walls bearing the echoes of months of pain and fear. Robert was there, his presence looming like a storm cloud. I steeled myself for what was to come, the moment where all my fear and determination would collide. "Sherry," Robert said, his voice unnervingly calm. "You're back. How was the hospital?" I kept my tone even, hiding the turmoil within. "It was fine. I'm feeling better. I lied, meeting his eyes with a semblance of calm. He circled me like a predator eyeing its prey. Good, because we need to talk about the situation. His gaze flickered to my still flat stomach, a sneer tugging at his lips. I clenched my fists, feeling the baby shift inside me. There's nothing to discuss. I've made up my mind. His expression twisted with anger. Your decision. You think you have a say in this? I held my ground, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yes, I do. This is my body, my child. I won't let you control me anymore. His laugh was cold, mocking. Oh, Sherry, you never learn, do you? I've always had control. I always will. But this time was different. I had a plan, a way out. I just needed to stay composed and bide my time. I'm tired, Robert. I'm going to bed, I said, turning to leave the room. He grabbed my arm, his grip unyielding. You're not going anywhere until we settle this. Just then, the front door flew open, the sound reverberating like a gunshot. Police officers surged into the room, their badges shining, their faces set with grim determination. Robert Pfizer, you're under arrest for the abuse and unlawful imprisonment of Sherry Pfizer, one officer declared, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Robert's face drained of color, and his grip on my arm loosened in shock. This is ridiculous. She's my wife. She's lying. But I wasn't alone this time. Mark stepped in behind the officers, his face hard with fury. No, Robert. You're the liar. We have everything. The recordings, the testimonies. It's over. Robert's eyes darted around, searching for a way out, but it was too late. The officers cuffed him, reading him his rights as he sputtered denials and threats. As they led him away, his eyes met mine one final time, a blend of disbelief and rage. But I didn't flinch. I stared back at him, my fear replaced with a burning sense of justice. Once the chaos subsided, Mark approached me, his expression softening. Sherry, are you all right? I nodded, the tears threatening to spill. Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Mark, for everything. He pulled me into a tight hug, his arms protective. Always, Sherry. Always. The house was eerily silent once they were gone, Robert's presence lingering like a shadow. But as I sat there, alone yet free, a sense of peace washed over me, something I hadn't felt in years. The confrontation had been terrifying, but it marked the first step toward a new life for me and my baby. The world seemed brighter, the air fresher, as I stepped into a future filled with hope. With Robert facing the consequences of his actions, I could finally breathe. I began to make plans for the future I had always wanted for me and my child. I moved back into my old apartment, its familiar walls offering comfort. It needed some work, a fresh coat of paint, perhaps a new picture, but it was mine. As I unpacked a box of old photos and trinkets, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Jess, her face lighting up with a wide smile. Sherry, look at you, free and glowing. I laughed, the sound genuine and light. Jess, come in. I've missed you. We sat amidst the half-unpacked boxes, a pot of coffee between us. So, what's next for you? Jess asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her question. First, I'm going back to work. I need to find my balance again. And then, well, I'll focus on being the best mom I can be. Jess squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with warmth. You're going to be amazing, Sherry. And remember, I'm always here if you need anything. I nodded, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak. I know, Jess. Thank you. As days turned into weeks, I settled into a rhythm. I returned to the library where the books and quiet provided me comfort. My coworkers welcomed me back, their support a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. The pregnancy progressed, each doctor's visit a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, my son was born. Holding him in my arms, the world outside faded away. He was perfect, my little beacon of love and hope. The legal battle with Robert was grueling and emotionally exhausting, but I remained resolute, backed by the support of Mark, Jess, and my legal team. In the end, justice prevailed. Robert was sentenced to years behind bars. His reign of control finally ended. I received a settlement enough to ensure a secure future for my son, my grandmother, and me. But more than the money, it was the freedom it symbolized that mattered. I was no longer bound by the control of a man who had seen me as an object to dominate. I was free. As my son grew, so did I. I learned to trust again, to laugh freely, to love without fear. I made new friends, reconnected with old ones, and found joy in the simple moments. One afternoon, as I watched my son play in the park, a thought struck me. We made it, little one. We really made it, I whispered, tears of happiness shimmering in my eyes. He looked up, his face lighting up in a smile, and for that fleeting moment, everything was perfect. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay amazed.